independent filmmakers in the liberal hotspot of Hollywood crowdfunded more than $2 million an independent film. They did it through crowdfunding. It was a record at that point of time. And I thought, if they can crowdfund that, we can crowdfund a fraction of that. It gave me the courage to leap. And we've kept in touch with Anne and Phelim ever since. I've been a fan of them for years, going back to their great movie Frack Nation, which also inspired me to write my book on fracking called Groundswell. They have other amazing movies and plays. They did the spoken word productions of FBI Lovebirds, for those of you who know the story of James Comey's troops. They're working on the Hunter Biden movie right now. So many good things. But today we're going to talk to Anne McElhinney about a podcast series that they've got out right now. And I'm very happy that Anne is joining us via Skype from the Hollywood area. And great to see you again. It's just amazing what you and Phelim and your small team have managed to accomplish in the past decade. And I want to let you know, it absolutely gave us the encouragement that we could do it too.
Thank you so much. I never kind of realized that, but thank you so much. Yeah, it's funny when when you ask people, look, we've got this idea, we'd like to make a movie, in the case when it started with Gosnell, and people turned up, $2.3 million in the end that we raised for that movie. It's fabulous, and it's inspiring, and it proves something, It proves that there's a gap in the market, that there are people who are hungry for the truth, and they're not getting it in the places that they should have. The institutions that they had previously trusted have let them down very badly. Yeah.
Now remind our viewers, especially our Canadian viewers, which is the bulk of our audience, who Kermit Gosnell is, because he may well be America's most prolific serial killer, but I put it to you that not 1 in 100 people would know that if he were a notorious, shooter or, Jack the Ripper. But because his profession was abortion doctor, and we're not calling an abortion a mass killing here. We're doing something very different. Can you explain to our viewers who Kermit Gosnell is and why he is more properly called, and in fact, the criminal courts did find that he was a mass murderer?
Yeah, so he's an abortion doctor, and very correctly, as you point out, what was important in the trial. So what he did was, instead of doing legal abortions, which are horrific in their own right, but no, what this guy did was he delivered babies alive and cut their necks with scissors, and he did this over 40 years. So the grand jury said he killed thousands, probably thousands and thousands of children. And that's what makes him the biggest serial killer in American history, and hasn't gotten the attention it should have gotten because of the thorny subject of abortion, which of course couldn't be more prescient than it is right now with the decision from the United States Supreme Court in the Roe v. Wade case, the Dobbs case, Mississippi Dobbs case, which has overturned Roe v. Wade effectively and brought the decision about abortion back to the states, back to the people to decide, which is where it should have been. But this guy, Kermit Gosnell, extraordinary. And as you say, to this day, there's still a lot of people who haven't heard of him. And that's why we've decided to make this podcast, this 6-episode true crime podcast, telling this story, this true crime story. I mean, I love true crime. A lot of people love true crime. And it's like, if you want a true crime case, this is an unbelievable one. You have a guy here who was discovered only because he was doing illegal drug sales. So that's what brought him to the attention of the authorities. And when they went to this clinic that he ran, they walked in to what they described afterwards as a house of horrors. There was literally, the smell was like a wall that they could, and we interview all of these investigators in the podcast. And it's quite an extraordinary story. They walk in, there's this extraordinary smell, and because they're cops, they recognize it, and it's the smell of death. It's the smell of rotting flesh. Oh. He has these bodies piled up in the basement, and it's an extraordinary story. And this guy was getting away with murder, which was decided in the courts in Philadelphia. He's actually serving 3 life sentences for what he did. They took him to court on the basis of these 3 particular cases that were very, very clear cut, where there was a lot of very, very obvious evidence against him, and witnesses who saw the deaths of these children who were born alive and then had their necks cut with scissors. Extraordinary.
I have such a hard time hearing this, and
I know
it shows what a weakling I am. I can't even hear it. Imagine being involved with it, trapped in it. And his victims were disproportionately African American and low income people. And that may have
that's
something
kind of
to
an
do with it
interesting.
too.
That in itself is a very interesting point, because you might listen to this case and think, oh my God, that's something that happened, in some backwater or some other century. No, this is this century in Pennsylvania, very, very progressive Pennsylvania, where, by the way, the politicians of progressive Pennsylvania would claim to really care about minorities, to really care about refugees. And we know from this case, from the investigation of this case, that two women, Samika Shaw, a young African-American mother, and Karnamaya Monger, a refugee, died after botched abortions at that clinic. And no one from the Department of Health in Harrisburg went to investigate. Kind of an amazing thing. So it really speaks a lot to the abortion issue and to what a sacred thing it is for progressives and leftists, that they would actually endanger women and children in order to protect it. And that's exactly what happened in this case. And there is absolutely no reason why we wouldn't believe that this wouldn't be happening in other parts of the country. Yeah. So it's an incredibly important case.
That was an excerpt from my daily TV-style show called The Ezra Levant Show. Each weekday, I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview a fascinating guest. I read some fan mail or hate mail, depends on which I like more, and we end with a video of the day. You can get it all at rebelnewsplus.com.